Let's talk to George Pitcher, the Reverend George Pitcher, I should say, former advisor to Rowan Williams. Reverend George, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Good to talk to you. A lot of questions this morning in the papers about what happens next to Justin Welby, who is now no longer, I presume, Archbishop Justin Welby. I think he's now the Right Reverend Justin Welby. Should he have his pass to the House of Lords removed? Should the bishops entirely be removed from the House of Lords because they're maybe partly anachronistic now to the kind of the moral guidance that they were supposed to be giving to the world? And what happens inside of the Church of England now? Should there be further investigation? Should there be more clergy sort of removed from their jobs, if you like?
I think it does raise questions about disestablishment is the word, about, removing the rights of the Church of England to sit in the House of Lords.
That's
and
great, because
and being part of our polity and so on. But you're right that this morning, I think I have a feeling that the story's already moving on. Justin Welby has stood down, and I think it's interesting to start looking at how the story might move on and should move on. I think we're presented with an amazing opportunity here to overhaul the management of the Church of England entirely. Right. I might, frankly, would nationalise it. I think we have an opportunity here to acknowledge that the job of Archbishop of Canterbury, rather like Prime Minister, is impossible and always ends in tears. Unlike Prime Minister, of course, it's unaccountable, the Archbishop of Canterbury, other than to the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, the monarch, and I suppose ultimately to God. I'd like to see the Church of England, as a consequence of this debacle, dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Well, it would be an opportunity, wouldn't it, to drag it into the sort of 19th century, first of all.
Well, yeah.
But to bring its management well up to date.
But what would that mean? What would that look like, though? When you say nationalise it, I sort of got visions of sort of union barons sitting in a big room somewhere, smoking and drinking coffee, and saying, "This is how we're going to run it, guys." From now on. Well, how would it look if that was the case?
Well, I think to have a secular authority to which the Church of England is responsible, I think, would be a very valuable thing. It would bring a new transparency and accountability of a kind of commercial nature to the Church of England, and I think that commercial word is important, because increasingly the Church of England has this millstone round its neck of its property heritage and its ancient buildings and so on. And it seems to me that sort of commercial talents could be brought to bear on that. We could defray the costs of that if we had a kind of publicly owned authority that used church properties for pastoral and social purposes during the course of the week, reopening post offices in rural areas, in churches, running cafes and outreach and social support infrastructure out of churches. That authority could have the responsibility for appointing bishops and clergy, and of course appraising their performance and conducting the methodology of safeguarding, which we've been so poor at ourselves. And this sort of model would leave the church in a place where bishops and clergy could get on with what they're meant to really be good at in their calling, which is pastoral and spiritual guidance in their communities, whilst being accountable, and we won't get the same old again, and the same old churning system where we go never again when a huge safeguarding scandal crops up, and guess what, something does crop up again. So this is an opportunity, I think, for a radical revamp, because it's unprecedented, Mike. We haven't had an Archbishop of Canterbury hounded out of office for 1,500 years or something. Right. I mean, you have to go back to Thomas of Becket to find one removed from office, and happily we don't cleave them asunder with broadswords anymore.
Not anymore, no. But I mean, the other thing about the nationalisation factor, I suppose, is one, people might not feel that comfortable with having religion as a sort of a national pastime, if you like, and something that they could access whether or not they were religious. It sort of defeats the object of it being a religion, it seems to me. But secondly, if it was involving any kind of funding from government, that would also probably not go down terribly well. And I worry as well that if you were to put a sort of secular committee, if you like, in charge of a religion, what would you end up with? Because would they not end up being kind of slightly disingenuous towards the God thing, if you like, for want of a better phrase, and it would cease to be a religion at all then, wouldn't it?
No, well, I don't think so. I mean, I think the spiritual or pastoral responsibility continues to reside within the church, and you do have an Archbishop of Canterbury, and you do have a House of Bishops, you do have a synod, and it still runs as the state religion of our country.
But answerable to who,
religion, in a sense, as you know, it's an established church, established in law. So, I mean, we kind of could recognise that in terms of what does it mean to have a national church, and let's run it as a national church.
But what I'm saying is that who would the Archbishop of Canterbury, I suppose, be answerable to in the final analysis?
Well, I think he should be accountable to I think leaders of the church should be accountable to a secular authority, because part of the problem we've had here is that the whole system of management is so opaque that these terrible crimes can be committed by a few dreadful people and go unremarked, unaddressed, and that's what's got us into so much.
I just fear the kind of the Quango effect as well, that you just have another kind of body of red tape sitting somewhere that would meet from time to time without any great purpose.
Well, yes, you wouldn't really want something that replicated the post office model.
You certainly wouldn't. No, I was thinking of that. Yeah.
But you'd. But I think as a society we probably have a responsibility for producing public organisations that are rather more effective and efficient than the smoke-filled rooms of old to which you refer, and the old quangos. I mean, if you bring those kind of commercial responsibilities to bear, you're beginning to do this, address the Church of England in the same kind of way that we're addressing the problems that we have with the NHS.
Yeah. Yes, no, I get what you're saying. I'm just sort of struggling to sort of visualise it, really. But good to talk to you. Reverend George Pitcher there, former advisor to Rowan Williams, saying that perhaps it needs a complete restructuring.